Parenting is about sacrifice. Anyone who is currently a parent or anyone considering becoming a parent should know that. The real question is, how much of a sacrifice are you willing to make for your child? How many things are you willing to give up? How many opportunities are you willing to walk away from? How often will you make your interests secondary to those of your son or daughter? In my video titled The Boundaries of Their Abilities, I talked about the last two generations, where too many of those adults are more likely to be paper successes than true successes. I've personally known too many parents who are truly tickled to tell you that their son or daughter is a doctor or a lawyer. But what they don't tell you is that their oldest is on their second or third spouse, and their second born is currently in rehab. I believe the big difference maker for raising a real success versus a paper success is directly related to the sacrifices that parents are willing to make when raising their children. Raising an independent, confident, good decision maker requires a great deal of sacrifice by the parents. Are you willing to sacrifice a promotion, avoid moving for your job, put your career on hold, perhaps not buy a new car every 3 years, or limit yourself to a single annual vacation? What sacrifices will you readily make to help better prepare your child to live their best life? In this video, I want to share some of the sacrifices my wife and I made to raise our ICD adult. I could never properly express my admiration for what my wife did, first, in preparation prior to getting pregnant, second, during her pregnancy, and third, all of the many sacrifices she made after our son was born. We did not just decide one day that we were ready for a baby and instantly start the incubation process. Once we decided to have a child, it was actually months before any attempts were made at getting my wife pregnant. So, first things first, a healthy mom drastically increases the likelihood of having a healthy baby. My wife began the process by getting into the best shape of her life. Joining a gym, committing to an exercise routine was both time-consuming and exhausting, but it was well worth the effort. She figured that if she was in great shape, it would pay off by making the entire process a little easier on both her and, more importantly, healthier for the baby. Now, everyone is unique, but being in your best shape physically and mentally prior to getting pregnant has no downsides. Will it guarantee your child is healthy and mom will cruise through the process? Of course not. But why wouldn't you start off as best you can, the healthiest you? Eating healthy and exercising are habits everyone should try and develop. So putting the effort into pursuing the healthiest you, it's made a little easier when you're doing it for the child you intend on creating, or the child that might already be growing inside of you. My wife's sacrifices didn't end when she finally became with child. She actually doubled down. Can you survive without coffee for 9 months? Yes, you can. Your significant other may find you a bit more irritable at times, but that's a small price to pay for keeping those toxins away from your unborn baby. But for her, it didn't end after 9 months. My wife didn't drink any coffee for the 9 months that she breastfed our son. She was fully committed to having the healthiest child possible and made that sacrifice without hesitation. Wine, of course, any and all alcohol actually, was absent from her life for both the 9 months of pregnancy and the entire time she was breastfeeding. I'd like to say that I suffered in partnership with her by sacrificing all those things too, coffee and booze. But to be honest, I don't drink either. Now, for the average significant other, you are not supporting your pregnant wife if every morning she smells the coffee you are enjoying before starting your day. Same goes for that evening cocktail to help you wind down after a long day of work. She needs you, her partner, to be just as strong for her as she's being by foregoing those pleasures, by making those sacrifices. If you want to get closer to your spouse, you want to show her through your actions, always more important than words in my opinion, that you love her. Match her sacrifices with your own sacrifices. Now, during those pre-baby days, the two of you should be discussing and debating as many parenting concepts as possible. Trust me, this really isn't easy. In my opinion, it's definitely I'll call it a pseudo-sacrifice. Together, lay out a basic plan for parenting, not just the particulars of who does what when your baby first comes home from the hospital, but all the stuff you're likely to deal with over the first 18 years of his or her life. This is the time, with baby not even here yet, or perhaps baby very, very young, where you should discuss your parenting philosophy. Agree on a parenting philosophy. In the military, they say that no plan survives first contact, and that is true when raising a child. Your plans will be challenged and almost assuredly will change, but starting with a common attitude, a common agreed upon approach has a great deal of value. Again, virtually everything you discuss about raising a child will likely change to some degree. What you're really doing is beginning the process of raising a child together. Put pen to paper and discuss everything from eating habits to discipline to education, anything you can think of. Anything and everything you think you'll need to deal with as parents should be discussed. What type of parents do you really want to be? How will you realize that? Now, there are many amazingly accomplished people that were raised in a single parent home. I am personally always in awe of a single parent, as I know firsthand how exhausting it was to raise a child where there were two of us. I don't think my son would be the individual he is today if I had to raise him on my own, or if my wife did it all by herself. However, assuming there are two of you raising your child, make sure you work together to do the job. Put your heads together to try and figure out the best approach for your child, whatever the situation you find yourselves in. Now, I can recall many times over the years where I did not handle a situation very well. Generally, well, almost all the time, I would always seek my wife's advice on how to fix the problem I had caused. And likewise, she would do the same with me. Now, here's one of the most important things to remember as a parent. There are no perfect parents. Only parents committed to doing the best job they can. Work together, and that'll be a little easier. If one of the important things to teach your child is to get them to understand that failure is okay, then you need to expect that you, as a parent, will occasionally fail as well. Personally, I had many spectacular failures at parenting. You will fail, more often than you think. You need to accept that. The question is, how are you going to turn that failure into something positive? How to get back on track to raising an ICD adult. Being a parent will at times be frustratingly difficult, and other times it's pure euphoric joy. What you need to understand is that both extremes are really up to you. Face it, you're the adult in the situation. Every parenting effort contains some element of sacrifice. You will spill, both literally and figuratively, blood, sweat, and tears. The reality is that you, as a parent, will decide is how much, how often, and to what degree those things get spilled. This is tough stuff. It will be scary at times, but trust me when I say, if you do it right, if you put in the effort, if you work together, it's worth it. Now, my wife made so many sacrifices, I couldn't begin to list them all here. Did she mess up a lot? Sure, just like I did. But she always put our son's best interest before her own, and that's what made all the difference. Now, me, did I make sacrifices? Absolutely. But in many ways, I felt like I hit the lottery. When I found myself between jobs, my wife and I discussed what I should do next. I had a few academic accomplishments. I was a CPA. I had an MBA in international business. I was a member of the state bar, and I had a professional resume that some might consider interesting and filled with potential. Long story short, I had a whole bunch of options. But when my wife and I discussed what was in the best interests of our family, being a stay-at-home dad came out number one by a huge margin. When we decided I would be a stay-at-home dad, I put the same amount of effort, of passion into that job as I had put into every other job I had ever had. I put the same commitment into being the best stay-at-home dad I could be as I had put into my academic and professional pursuits. This wasn't going to be a dad gets to stay home and play with a kid. This was a relentless, focused effort to raise my son to be the best that he could be. At that time, there's no ICD parenting guide. There was only me trying to figure out how to be the best parent I could be. Now, being a stay-at-home dad was particularly challenging. The average man working a job for a living looked at me like I had leprosy. Like something was seriously wrong with me. Why would anyone with the academic credentials I had or professional experience I had throw it all away to play babysitter every day? Now, the stay-at-home moms, they were confused by me, but at first. Eventually, I became just another stay-at-home mom to them. The first time I got caught in a discussion about breastfeeding was a little off-putting, or what I thought was off-putting at the time. But the topics got much more female-centric after that. Let me just say that there are many female-oriented discussions that a man does not want to be present for. We all know there's a boys' club. That includes topics where they discuss that no woman should be subjected to. And now I know personally that there's a women's club and no man should be involved in it. Now, those moms I got to know, they were great. Eventually, they were super helpful, they were thoughtful, they were supportive. That's what we were. I was thankful to be included, even though I was the odd man out, literally. Now, this stuff's important here. There's a great deal of confusion in society today when it comes to valuing the stay-at-home parent's role in the family and the community at large. So let me make this very clear. A stay-at-home parent is priceless. It's as easy as counting to infinity as it is to put a price tag, a salary equivalent, on being a stay-at-home parent. So that's to say, it's impossible. A stay-at-home parent contributes to the development of a child, the future of our society really, in an immeasurable way. For those of us who are lucky enough to do it, it's the greatest job ever. There's no other job in the world that could be as exhausting, as frustrating, or so often as thankless as being a stay-at-home parent. But there's no other job in the world that could bring as much fulfillment, as much pleasure, or as much pure joy as committing full-time to raising a child. I wouldn't trade anything in the world for my time being a stay-at-home dad. I have absolutely zero regrets about the great professional career I might have had. I wanted to be a stay-at-home parent, and I put more into that job than any other job would have ever required of me. A stay-at-home parent is on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Was it a sacrifice? Yes, in so many ways, almost every day. But the funny thing is, about that sacrifice, most days, it felt like a gift. Ask a stay-at-home parent that you trust for an honest opinion. They'll tell you, just like I have. Raising a child to be an independent, confident, good decision maker is a full-time job. I will be forever thankful to my wife for letting me do it. Best job ever. If you want to know when I post a new video, please subscribe. It's the button on the bottom in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. And please comment and like my video if you've heard anything you think is worthwhile. Thanks for listening.